From Hollywood, California, by way of the Broken Skull Ranch, this is the Steve Austin Show.
Give me a hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Now, here's Steve Austin.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Steve Austin Show. I am coming to you from Agua Dulce, California. I'm out on the set of Broken Skull Challenge. It's Monday. As I hold this microphone and recorder in my hand, I'm pacing around my trailer. We start work tomorrow. The only reason we have off today is because the art department is out there resetting the challenges. We changed everything up so that the guys coming out tomorrow and the next few days won't know what we're about to throw at them. Got to keep them guessing. This show is going to be really kick-ass when it comes out on country music television here in a couple of months whenever they decide to start airing this thing. I'm very excited about it. And y'all know, I just got back from Texas. Went down there for about a week. Got a chance to go down to the Broken Skull Ranch, South Texas location, and visit my family and hang out and try to relax a little bit. Ted Fowler 361 came down. We opened up a can of audio whoop-ass last Thursday, shooting the breeze and having a good time. And Teddy went back to Rockport. And my wife and I were the only ones down there at the ranch. And I was trying to relax. And it had rained a couple days pretty hard, back to back. And I told my wife, I said, well, why don't we go ahead and make a lap? We'll make some margaritas, we'll take a lap with the dogs, and I'll put everything back in the barn and get ready to leave out here and get back to Los Angeles. So I made a couple of margaritas. We was making a lap, and we were staying on the all-weather roads because it had rained 2 days back-to-back very hard. Now, Ted had told me how hard it rained out there, and he sent a video of it on the phone, and I watched it. But when I got out there, I was figuring, hey, man, the sun came out so hot, I think it's bright enough and hot enough that it dried this mud up. So we'll go out there in the four-wheel drive pickup, leave it in two-wheel drive, and make a lap. Everything was going fine until I decided to cut across the pasture by a stand known as Stone Cold. No, I did not name the stand Stone Cold. Somebody else did. And that was where we hit a problem. All of a sudden, we sank in the mud. And I said, oh, man, this is not good. I got a margarita I just made, and this is one of those about quadruple margaritas. And I'm thinking to myself, the grass is very tall. We are in deep mud. I got 3/4 of a margarita. I'm wearing flip-flops. There's snakes out, rattlesnakes. It's about 1.5 miles back to the headquarters. And this is going to be a real miserable trip if I've got to trot 1.5 miles in my flip-flops trying to drink a margarita, because ain't no way I'm going to get out there amongst them mosquitoes, and much less the rattlesnakes, who are an imminent threat to bite me on my toes, my foot, or my shin, or my calf as I'm walking through this tall grass, because right now it's rattlesnake season. So I sat there, and I never panicked. I remained calm. And there's a light on the dash of my pickup truck, and it says service four-wheel drive. It has said service four-wheel drive for almost about 9 to 12 months now. Obviously, I haven't had the time to take it to the shop to get the four-wheel drive serviced. My wife was in the truck a few months back, and she couldn't get the four-wheel drive to work. So I said, dude, there's only one way to find out, and that's to push a button. And I pushed the auto four-wheel drive button, and nothing happened. I put it in gear, tried to reverse out of there, and sank a little bit deeper in the mud. And I said, okay, I'm smart enough, and I've been around enough and been in enough mud to know not to dig myself in a hole. So then I got out of four-wheel drive and decided to go the manual route and hit the four-wheel low button. I put it in reverse, looked out, and saw that my front wheels were spinning a little bit, so that meant that my four-wheel drive was working. I tell you what, I did about 3 reverse to drives, nothing too hard and heavy, and then just hit that reverse and hit a steady pace and started easing back out of that mud. I mean, this was like a miracle, people. This was like the Red Sea parting. The water's parting. I think it was the Red Sea when Moses parted that water. This is along those epic proportions, because this was some serious black mud that we was about to be stuck in. And I'm telling you, it was divine intervention. Somebody was watching over us, because there's no way we should have been able to back out of that mud like I backed out of it. Now, I will give myself credit. I'm a damn good driver. I'm a hell of a driver. I know mud. I don't live in mud, but I've been around it enough and been in it enough and stuck in it enough to know when I got real lucky. I got a little bit of skill. On that day, I was 99% lucky and 1% skill, but we got out of that mud. And I'm telling you, I'm glad we did, because it was about a mile and a half back to headquarters. I had a margarita in a big tumbler with 4 shots of tequila in it, flip-flops, and a lot of rattlesnakes out there, and I didn't want to make that trek on foot and risk getting my sorry ass bit because I was so stupid not to listen to Ted Fowler 361 say how muddy it was at the ranch. There's one thing that I don't know if I've ever really talked about on this podcast is, well, while I'm bragging about myself being good in the mud, is my ability to back up using a side view mirror. Whether it's a Ford Bronco or my Chevy Z71, dude or man, I can back up 60 miles an hour and stay straight down the road. Don't know why or how I can back up so fast or why I'm so good at it. I guess it's because chasing them hogs with my brother-in-law Mitch, I got lots of practice driving backwards. So anyway, we made our way to the perimeter road. I breathed out a sigh of relief and said, we got lucky, and I took a big old swig of that margarita, and we cruised on back to the damn ranch house. And that was my story about damn near being stuck in the mud. And I'm telling you, my wife was about to just go absolutely bat crazy on me because she knew when we got in that mud, it was all over but the crying. And somehow I finagled our way out. So I got to be the hero of the day. And that's my story about being stuck in the mud. Hey, later on in the podcast, I kept telling you guys about, 4th of July coming and what we were going to do, what we might do, come out here to Agua Dulce and get away from Marina Del Rey and those firecrackers. But we decided to stay in town. And I got a story that happened on July 3rd out there at the 316 Gimmick Street location that I'm going to drop on you as soon as I come back from my first break. Today what I'm going to basically do is answer some Q&As that you guys sent into the show. Since I'm out on here in location and I ain't really got nobody to talk to, I'm going to answer the questions that you guys been sending in because I've been asking for them and y'all been sending in, and we're just going to sit here and we're going to shoot the breeze and we're going to answer questions and have a good time. But before I get to that, and I got to take care of my first spot, I also want to take care of the fact of it was a little bit of a disturbing day today because I found out that the word on the street was Steve Austin had gotten Roddy Piper fired from PodcastOne for one of the podcasts he did. And those rumors are all over the internet. And today was a great day for me. They announced that I was going to be on the cover of the WWE 2K16 video game. And I'm going to talk about that when I come back from my break, too. I'm so proud of that. I retired in 2003. Well, let's just say I left the wrestling business in 2003. So, fast forward all these years, 2015, the fact that I could be on the cover of this video game was an incredible honor, and I'm very proud of it. So I want to talk about that when I come back from the break. But I want to address the issues with Roddy Piper. But when I started reading all this, I was so confused and conflicted of why and how all this went down. And I read more articles, and I'm thinking, man, this couldn't be further from the truth. And I was going to address this on the open of the show just to get it out of the way. But I said, man, I got to put it on the back burner. And I'm not doing this to string you along to get you to listen to the show, but I'm going to cover the Roddy Piper rumors about me getting him fired from PodcastOne on the close of the show. And if you want to just fast forward to that, be my guest and fast forward to it. This ain't about a download. I just want to answer the question. There's no heat there. There's no nothing. I'm going to give you the facts exactly as they happened. I've got a lot of respect for the career that Roddy Piper had inside the squared circle. He paid a lot of dues. He entertained a lot of people. He drew a lot of money. But the stories about me getting him fired from PodcastOne.com, not true. and I will cover that on my close here at the end of the show. But anyway, let's take care of a little bit of business before we come back to the body of the show and answer the questions you guys sent in, the questions at steveaustonshow.com. Like I said, it was just announced today that I am the cover superstar on WWE 2K16 video game, and I'm proud as a peacock of that. It's a great honor. But, speaking of video games, someone also showed me another video game that looks very, very cool, and it's called Game of War. Now, have y'all got this app on your phones yet? This is finally something you can get on your phone that you can download that's worth it. If not, go get it at downloadgameofwar.com. Downloadgameofwar.com. So here's the cool thing about Game of War. It's got an in-game chat translation feature. This feature can even translate another language's internet slang. So if you're here in the U.S. and you're playing somewhere in Russia, this chat feature will translate all your comments to Russian and all their comments to English. Talk about breaking down the language barrier. That's the ticket. You can make new friends all over the globe, and you're going to want to do that in order to build your alliance so you can attack and defeat other empires. Now, I can see why millions of people are addicted to this game. Check it out for yourself. Get the app at downloadgameofwar.com and get a chance to win a Game of War t-shirt autographed by yours truly, me, a global icon and a national treasure. For your chance to win the signed t-shirt, you need to download the Game of War app now. Take a screenshot and tweet it to @PodcastOne with the hashtag #AustinGameOfWar. Again, for a shot at the free autographed t-shirt, get the Game of War app at downloadgameofwar.com. Take a screenshot of it and tweet that screenshot to @PodcastOne with the hashtag #AustinGameOfWar. Winner will be chosen randomly from all valid entries received. All right, everybody, here we go. Let's go ahead and open up a can of audio whoop-ass and get on with things. I'm going to answer the question you guys sent in, but I got to tell you a quick story. And it all started with, now that the WWE 2K16 video game announcement has been announced, and I can let the cat out of the bag and say that I'm on the cover, I'm very excited and very honored about it. The feedback on Twitter has been outstanding. About 99.9% people are happy about it. The other people, 0.1, looking for a current superstar, whatever. Hey, man, I understand everybody's sentiments and thoughts and opinions on this matter. When I got the call several months ago, and it's funny because all this was going on back in the day when I had alleged heat with WWE, and everybody thought that there was a big rift between us. But I knew this was going to happen way back then, and I couldn't say anything because it was kayfabe. Wasn't time to announce it yet. And, of course, we end up lining up the podcast thing, and that happened. But it's always the thing about the alleged heat. So anyway, this thing has been, and so many of these things in life, as you well know, or business dealings and things that are take a while to be developed, and the concept and the selection process. I mean, all these things take time. So when I got the phone call that they wanted me to be on the cover of the 2K16 video game, I was astounded and very honored. And, I've been gone a long time. And to be remembered in such a way that they would dust me off out of the closet and bring me back out is a very humbling experience. And like I said in a couple of the interviews, when you look at the roster back then in that Attitude Era, and I'm not blowing smoke up the Attitude Era's ass. This is a family-friendly show. It's not all about the Attitude Era. I'm way down with everything that's going on today's product, and these guys and gals in the ring I couldn't be more excited for because, they're living, what I wanted to do with my life, be a professional wrestler, sports entertainer, whatever. But I just wanted to one more time give credit to all those guys that I worked with back in the Attitude Era because, hey, man, it ain't a one-man show. Yeah, I got to work on top. But when you look, like I said in some of the interviews, at all of the guys that have been inducted into the Hall of Fame already and guys that will be inducted into the Hall of Fame in the next near future, we just literally had one of the best rosters in the history of the business. And so, man, you don't get a chance to do something like this by yourself. And so I appreciate the opportunity. I'm thrilled to death. I had a wonderful professional wrestling career. I absolutely loved living my life on the road. with all the headaches, hassles, and good times and bad times and high times and low times and all the things that happened, man, it was the thrill of a lifetime. And like I said in that video WWE made for me, I had to ride off in the sunset a little bit sooner than I would have liked, but it is what it is. And, man, I'm a happy camper. And to be brought back, again, it goes back to, people either dig you or they don't dig you or they kind of dig you. And due to the fact that the overwhelming support that I've had through the fan base over my entire career, and the powers that be, I guess, recognize that or whatever. But they put me on the cover of the video game, so I appreciate it. I'm very honored and very excited about it. But here's the story. So we're out there, now that the cat's out of the bag. So we're filming outside of Los Angeles, probably about 40 miles from where we do Broken Skull Challenge. And it's on this 10,000-acre movie ranch. And, man, this ranch, as you can see in the opening part of that video, how spectacular the landscape was, these rolling hills and grass. It was absolutely beautiful. When I rolled through there, I'd never seen 10,000 acres in California, not much less Los Angeles, and 40, 50 miles out of Los Angeles where you have 10,000 acres that are connected in one piece. And I was like, dude, I went to the check station. I said, did y'all's family own this for years and years and years? And the guy said, yeah. And he started giving me the story about, how the land came to be. And, of course, me, man, I just got a brand new Kawasaki mule. I said, man, I got a Kawasaki mule. I said, man, is there any way I can come out here and ride? He goes, yeah, man. He gave me his phone number. So I got a place to go ride old Buck the Mule whenever I get a chance to on this 10,000-acre place where we shot the commercial, the video that you're seeing online right now. Well, here's the thing. Anytime you go shoot something, like when you're doing a movie. Okay, let's talk about The Rock. The Rock's the biggest movie star in the world right now. When they're doing the rehearsals or the setups, he's got a stand-in guy. And so The Rock's not out there while all the stuff is going on in the setup. He's number one on the call sheet. So when they get ready to roll cameras, that's when they say that's when they'll invite Rock to the set and say, hey, man, we're ready for you if you're ready to go. And so that's the same thing that happens on a commercial shoot or a video shoot. I was number one on the call sheet, so I had a guy out there that was kind of jacked up, looked like me, had a bald head and a goatee. And he was out there, and they were filming all the stuff with him. And there's a couple of faraway shots. And they figured, well, maybe we'll use him on the faraway shots, a body double. And then all of a sudden, when you watch that video and you can see me unearthing that Smoking Skull belt, I reached down in there and I wiped that dirt off that belt. And they had the body double guy do that. And they noticed when I came out there for continuity, they said, hey, Steve, can you take off your wedding ring and your watch? I said, sure, no problem. So I took off my wedding ring and my watch. And he said, but you can leave the other ring on because that's kind of your trademark, the skull ring, right? I said, yeah, the skull ring is obviously my trademark. I've been wearing it ever since about 96, when I got the thing in Houston, Texas. So anyway, and here's the thing. I've worn that ring so often for so long, it's got a flat spot in it where I hit it up against stuff and you grab stuff when you're working out because I train with the thing on. And the night before the video shoot, my wife and I had went out. And because it was my only day off, we shot this commercial on a Saturday. I've been filming Broken Skull Challenge Monday through Friday, and Saturday was supposed to be my day off. But because of the schedule, because I needed to get this shot, I had to work on my day off. So it was a 12-hour production day. I drove out there to the 10,000-acre ranch, and we're going to do a scene that was going to take all day. So I was there for the long haul. And my point is, by eating a hamburger, drinking a margarita, and eating some French fries, this was my cheat meal for the week, my fingers swole up. And they said, hey, man, could you take the ring off and let the body double wear it? And I said, yeah, it's fine with me. So there I go. I used my left hand, and I spit on my finger, and I'm trying to get that damn ring off my finger, but it's so bent up that I couldn't pull it off. I said, man, does someone have some soap or some alcohol scrub, something slippery? And they started squirting a bunch of stuff on my hands. And I'm pulling and pulling, and it takes me literally, this is God's honest truth, about 3 minutes to get that dang ring off my finger. And when I did, it hurt. And I actually pulled some of the skin off my finger. But I was bound and determined to let that cat wear that ring while they was filming that. Well, they filmed it, and they said to me afterwards, they said, Steve, your hands are very distinctive. Or they said, Steve, you have very distinct hands. Would you mind putting the ring back on and you brushing the dirt off the belt? I said, of course I will. I said, that's why you guys brought me out here, because you want me to be in the video. I said, man, you got me here all day. I'm here to do whatever work you need me to do. So here we go. I've got to put the ring back on my finger. Well, in the process of pulling it off, I had made my damn knuckle, my middle knuckle, swell up pretty damn big. Also, the fact that I had the french fries, the margaritas, and the hamburger on my cheat day, not a regular everyday occurrence, my fingers were swollen up to begin with. So I go putting this ring back on my finger. And let me know if you've ever had an experience like this. I'm pushing that damn ring on. It's not like this little thin wedding band I got on. This thing's probably 1 millimeter or 2 millimeters wide. That skull ring, because of the top part of it, is very tricky. When you put the ring on, it's very light and it's solid and it's very comfortable. It's not a hollowed out back. So I go to try to put that ring back on my finger, and mister, I am shoving with everything I got to get that ring back on my finger. It won't go. We got the alcohol scrub. We got soap. We got suntan lotion. We got everything for lubrication. I needed some KY jelly and a shoehorn. And finally, I'm starting to panic. I'm really about to start to panic because that thing got stuck right there on the fattest part of my knuckle, because my fingers are kind of skinny once they join onto my hand, but my knuckles are kind of big and gnarly. So that's what makes a ring so tricky to get on my hand, coupled with the fact that it was already swollen and everything from the salt. I'm about to start panicking here, and I'm thinking, man, they're going to have to call a fire department out here, not like they did to my trailer over in Agua Dulce because I fell in the shower. But I got this ring stuck on my finger for a shoot, and it ain't going nowhere. It ain't going on, and it won't come off. So finally, I stuck my finger in my mouth and tried to use my teeth as leverage to push the ring on. And my double looks at me and goes, Steve, you're going to break your teeth out. And I said, man, I don't care. I've got to get this ring either on or off my finger because I'm in trouble. So maintaining my composure as 100 people watch me try to get this ring either on or off my finger is first and foremost on my protocol of things that I must do. So I remained calm with steely resolve, because on that day I was Stone Cold Steve Austin, a BMF if there ever was one, stomping mud holes in anything in its sight and walking them dry. I got the ring back on my finger. Just by a frog hair, I got that ring back on my finger, and it was a 5-minute struggle. And when I got it back on, the rest of my finger immediately swole up. So I would carry around a bag of ice to try to keep the swelling down. I looked at the director, who was a really, really nice guy from Sweden, and maybe it wasn't the director. It might have been the guy working next to him. And I said, man, I'll do anything you want for this video shoot. I'm happy to be here. But that's the first and last time this ring is going to come off my finger. I think they understood exactly what I was talking about and where I was coming from. So anyway, I got the ring back on my finger. We shot the rest of the video. You'll see the rest of the video as it, keeps going and unfolding. But that was the story of the start of the ring story that happened on July 3rd. Our neighbors, Bucky and Cindy, invited us over there to their house to drink a beer and have a steak. Well, we had just come in from Texas. We were tired. We literally had just flown in, and it'd been a long day, and didn't really feel like doing anything, but our neighbors are really good people, so we decided to go over there and hang out with them. And, man, I'm sitting there having my beer, and I'm drinking a Mayberry IPA from El Segundo Brewing Company. Good beer, and real good beer. And so I'm sitting there thinking, I said, man, ever since I went to this video shoot, my finger has been swole up and very sore. I would like to take this thing off now if I could get some assistance. And so, boy, all of a sudden, the brain trust started going to work, and it was my wife, myself, Bucky, my buddy, and Cindy, his wife. And they said, well, you ought to try to shrink that finger down, so what if you put ice on it? So they got me a big bucket of ice and some water, and I stuck my hand in there like a big-ass bear mitt in this water. and I got a beer in there because I was fixing to drink another Mayberry IPA, so I got a beer stuck down in there, and I'm going to send you the picture that we took that night of me icing my hand trying to make the swelling go down so I could pull this ring off. So anyway, I soaked my fingers in there for about my whole hand for about 5 or 10 minutes. And back in the day when I played football, I was used to getting into, the ice tub or using ice, the swelling of stuff all the time because that's what you used to do and you're used to it. Well, I haven't had my big-ass mitt stuck in a big thing of ice in a long time, and my fingers were cold as hell and frozen to death. So finally, I pulled my hand out and I said, all right. I said, if that don't do it, we're just going to skip it, and then I'll give it a try. I got to dry it off first. That moisture kind of made my finger a little tacky, and it's not going to come off. So they went inside, and they got some Hawaiian Tropic. No, it was Banana Boat. Some Banana Boat gimmick suntan lotion, some alcohol scrub, and some WD-40. And I told them, I said, listen, I'm going to tell this story on a podcast. This is a straight-up shoot. I said, I'm telling this story on the podcast. I said, I ain't putting no gimmick suntan lotion or anything else on my finger. If I'm going to tell a story, it's got to be real deal. So I got to use that WD-40 because that's what a working man uses to get a nut off a bolt. That's what a working man uses to lubricate something out there in the field, the working man. So I figure I'm going to use what the working man does because I'm a working man myself. And I got to make this the most macho story ever, especially if I'm going to tell it on my family-friendly podcast. We use that WD-40. And we put that little gimmick thing on that little red sticker, that little red rod that comes in there. And we got WD-40 all up underneath that ring and got all over the rest of my finger. And I grabbed a towel to grab the ring with my left hand and give a real damn pull. And I started pulling. I did a tug-of-war. I did about a 3-minute Broadway, me and that ring on my finger. And after doing this thing 2 weeks ago, I knew that one go was all it's going to be. If you don't get it on the first go, it ain't coming off because that finger's going to swell up more, and then you're really pissing in the wind, pardon my French, as far as trying to get anything accomplished. So we failed. The attempt failed. And I'm sitting there, I take a sip of my beer, and I'm thinking, dude, I said, this ring has to come off because now my part of my finger where that safety is really needs to come off. And so Bucky, who's a woodworker, as a hobby, and he tinkers with everything, he goes to his work shed and brings back a flexible hacksaw blade, very thin. We slide the hacksaw blade underneath the ring and get it over that big-ass callus on my palm that I got so much from working out in the gym, tossing them iron bars around. And he's going to pull this thing back and forth and cut through the ring. Well, that didn't work. So we pulled the blade out, and I looked at him, and I said, dude, I said, you got a hammer? And he said, yeah, I got a hammer. I said, what I want you to do is hit it over here on this ridge and see where this flat spot is. If we can get that to bend out, that's going to create the space that I need to get the ring off my finger. So I got my hand laying on the table. Now, Bucky, my friend, could have pulled a rib on me and knocked the living hell out of my finger or my hand if he wanted to, but he was using the skill of a surgeon because he's a woodworker. And we were tapping on that damn ring, and we were mouse-shaping it and reshaping it and misshaping it. And finally, after all the tapping with that hammer, we bent it up pretty good, but we weren't successful. And finally, I looked at him. I said, man, there's a pretty good crook in there. I said, you got a pair of 10 snips, wire snips, cutters, anything? He goes, yeah, I think I do. So he goes back to his workshop, comes back with a big-ass set of industrial-size scissor-looking gimmicks that were snips. And I said, dude, I said, stick that point up underneath the thin part of that ring and just give it a cut. Man, he stuck that thing in there, gave a good squeeze, and cut through half of that band. Stuck it in there, repositioned, cut through the entire band. We were successful. Okay, we've got the ring cut in one space. Now we've got to pry it off because even with that space, my finger is too big to slide out of there, and now we have some sharp edges. So he proceeds to go back to the workshop and gets a pair of pliers. and with a pair of pliers, we're able to bend both of those pieces of the ring out so that I can free my finger. So we destroyed the ring that I've been wearing, or one of the rings that I've been wearing for, over 15 years. I can't remember. I've lost and replaced a couple of them, but I've had to have that ring for probably 15 years. And I'm going to put a damn picture on Twitter about that damn ring of me with my hand in that ice bucket with that Mayberry IPA, and me with that damn ring and those wire snips, or the destroyed ring on the table. And that was my story of July 3rd, right before the 4th of July. And so, Bucky, you old creative rascal, you, thank you very much for not just whacking the hell out of my hand with that hammer, and thanks for using the wire snips to cut that damn thing off my hand, and thanks to WD-40 for being so damn macho and slippery. We couldn't get the job done with you, but you've helped me out on so many other occasions down at the ranch with the tractor and everything else. More power to you. So that led us to the 4th of July. And my wife and I decided, you know what? We're going to chill on the 4th of July. She talked about coming out here to Agua Dulce because there's a fire ban out here because it's so dry. And she thought, man, that trailer over there is so nice. Why don't we just go out there and we'll chill out there and we won't have to worry about the fireworks. I said, the direct TV's down, the satellite's down. I said, it's a wonderful trailer, but I think you're going to be bored as hell over there. Even though you just like to chill out with me, I think you're going to prefer being in the coolness of the marina. So we decided to stay in town. And sure enough, just like I told you guys on the podcast, Marina Del Rey, they started lighting off them firecrackers. And what my wife and I was going to do, we were just going to fire up the grill and make hot dogs. And that's exactly what we did. I drank about 3 or 4 beers. Again, this is on a cheat day, the day after the cheat day I had with Bucky and Cindy. And it was the 4th of July, so I could throw an excuse in there. So we chilled out, and they started busting them firecrackers. And we didn't think, because Shona, our black lab, is the one that's petrified of all the noises. And she's 12 years old now, and she don't hear quite as good as she used to. So she wouldn't hear them at first. But then she started dialing in, and she knew what time it was. It's like every year she knows that it's July 4th or it's New Year's Eve. She knows what kind of firecrackers go with what noise, and she knows what time it is. She knew it was July 4th, and she started getting real nervous. So my wife said, we're going to have to give her some Xanax. And so we busted out a piece of cheese, because I don't know if you've ever tried to give a dog a Xanax, and hopefully most of you haven't, because you don't need to. And if you didn't need to, the dog didn't need a Xanax to begin with. So, you get a piece of cheese, like a slice of cheese that you would use on a sandwich, and just kind of wrap that little 1 milligram of Xanax in that, and you feed it to Shona. And there in about 30, 45 minutes, she starts chilling out a little bit. Well, we got through kind of just, doing our thing. We're just kind of visiting, listening to music. I had on my little portable boom box, and I had to play that thing loud. I was playing Easton Corbin's new album loud. And then I had to switch over to rock and roll, even louder. And then I had on Pandora radio. And it was about time to go to bed. And as a matter of fact, my wife had already fell off to sleep. And I'm sitting there with the little boom box. I mean, this thing will rock. It's called a job rocker. And this thing is what I use out here on the Broken Skull Ranch when I'm working out here in South Texas. I bought one for the ranch. I liked it so much. And I got that thing cranking. And, man, it's past my bedtime. I don't need another beer. I just want to go to sleep. But I can't, because the job rocker's pumping out the jams, so Shona can't hear the damn explosions from all the people who love to do fireworks on the 4th of July, which is a national pastime. It's a national, it's a July 4th. It's a tradition. And so, finally, in the wee hours of the night, the firecrackers stopped. I turned off the boom box. I didn't have a ring on my finger. My finger is still swollen to this day. As I record this podcast, I don't have a ring on that finger, and I won't for quite some time. Shut off the lights and got some sleep and chilled out and enjoyed the other 2 days at the house. And now I am fixing to take a break, and when I do come back, I'm going to answer the questions that you guys sent in, the questions at SteveAustinShow.com. Those are just a couple of the little BS stories, the headaches, hassles, and the horse manure that goes on in life. Everybody has them. I've had a bunch of them here lately, And when I come back, also on the close of the show, I'll deal with the Roddy Piper rumors and talk about that, and that'll be on the close of the show. I'm coming right back to answer your questions here on the Steve Austin Show. Had to give you a couple stories and tell you what was going on with the global icon and a national treasure while I'm out here in Agua Dulce, California. I'm coming right back after a word from our sponsors.
Do you own a home or condo? Or perhaps you rent a house or apartment? Sure you do. And Geico knows it can be hard work. Because whether you own or rent, you still have to fill it full of your stuff. Your furniture, the flat screen, and all the boxes of stuff that have been sitting there ever since you moved in, but haven't unpacked. It's hard to find the time, right? But you know what's easy? Bundling policies with Geico. Geico makes it easy to bundle your homeowner's or renter's insurance along with your auto policy. That way, you'll rest easy knowing that your home and all your stuff is protected. Like the furniture and that flat screen. Plus, getting a quote on homeowners and renters insurance is super easy through Geico. It's a good thing, too, because you already have so much to do around your home. You know, like going through all those boxes of stuff. Visit geico.com, get a quote, and see how much you could save. It's Geico easy. Visit geico.com today. That's geico.com.
The Steve Austin Show. The Steve Austin Show.
All right, this first question is a little bit of a long one, but I'm going to kind of pare it down and get to the brass tacks of it. And he says the name you don't hear mentioned very often is Skandor Akbar. His parents got him hooked on wrestling as a kid, and they were totally immersed in it and would just yell at the TV screen. And this guy grew up on Ted DiBiase and people like that over in the Bill Watts promotion, and got to see live shows in Arkansas. And Akbar had so much heat way back in the day, and he just was a big fan, and he was scared to death of Skandor Akbar. He thought it was a great heel, and he said he'd love to hear me discuss Skandor Akbar, or at least my thoughts on him. And this is coming from Jerry in Northwest Arkansas. Man, Jerry, again, I've talked about Skandor Akbar many times on this podcast, and it's the same old story. Man, he was a heel manager, and he was running Devastation Incorporated at the time there at World Class Championship Wrestling in Dallas, Texas. And I always thought Devastation Incorporated was one of the greatest names of a faction in the history of the business. It don't get no more badass than Devastation Incorporated, believe me. I know a few things about badass things. Devastation Incorporated is at the top of the list with a lot of the other great ones that just stand alone by themselves. But Skandor Akbar was one of the kindest people that I ever met in the history of the business. He was always cool about telling me, he goes, save your money, kid. Save your money. And Skandor Akbar, who was managing heels at the time, and Bronco Lubitsch, who was a referee, and Bronco Lubitsch used to wrestle way back in the day, and it was also on a tag team back in the day. His partner's name escapes me at this moment. But I would get in the back seat when those guys were going down to the roads, and we were doing some shots over there in Louisiana. And I didn't have nobody to travel with because I was a young punk kid in the promotion that nobody else wanted to ride with because they was all savvy veterans, and they were doing their thing. They already had their riding partners. It was all carved in stone for those guys, and I understand that. Later on, guys like Gary Young and all those other guys would befriend me and take me in their cars and give me the 411 on the business, and they told me a million things that helped me out so much. But Skandor Akbar and Bronco Lubitsch would tell me stories the whole time, and I would ask questions and sit in that back seat. And Jim Ross got a chance to know Skandor Akbar very well throughout the course of his career, and I know Jim has a lot of good things and good memories of Skandor Akbar. I remember it was a couple of years ago that Jim told me he was going to go down somewhere and that Akbar was going to be there. And I said, man, you're going to see Skandor? He goes, yeah, I'm going to see him in 2 weeks. So I said, man, if I write you a letter, will you give it to him? He goes, well, sure I will. So anyway, I wrote Skandor a letter and put it in an envelope and sent it to Jim. And Jim got to the convention and he saw Skandor. And I just wrote in a letter about how much he influenced my career and about how much he had helped me, and in riding down the roads, how he helped shape my vision of the business and some of the things that would come up later on in my career would be totally unexpected, but a lot of the things that I could expect. And just to work hard and to learn the business and to save my money. That's what he preached, save your money, just like Bruiser Brody did when he come through there. I'll never forget the story he told me one time when Brody first came into the territory, and Skandor was talking to Brody, and Ack asked him, he goes, how you doing on money? And at the time, Bruiser Brody had a bunch of cans of tuna fish in a shopping basket, cans of tuna fish. And Ack looked at him, he goes, you'll be fine, because he knew Brody was saving his money just eating out of tuna cans. So I wrote Skandor a letter, and I thanked him for everything that he bestowed upon me, all the knowledge that he gave me. And then, not too long after that, he passed away. And I got nothing but high respects and good things to say about a real honorable man that contributed much to the learnings of a young white meat babyface when I started back in the business of pro wrestling in 1990 and turned in to be the Rookie of the Year. So he was a hell of a man, a hell of a mentor, a hell of a guy who would go out of his way to help anybody in the business out who he figured would listen to him and would apply it as it pertains to stepping inside a squared circle and putting on a show for folks. So Jerry over there in Northwest Arkansas, that's my thoughts of Skandor Akbar. And if I had somebody sitting here riffing with me, I would probably be able to tell you a bunch of different Skandor stories. But right now, I'm all jammed up, and that's what happens when you made a living, getting hit in the head with steel chairs, but having a good time doing it. Hey, here's another question, and here's a question, dude, comes from Dan in Kentucky, and he says, Steve, what was your relationship with the Big Boss Man like? I think he was a pretty underrated cat. He wasn't the most charismatic dude in the world, but he really took on that role really well. He was believable, and that goes a long way in my book. Thanks, Steve. Swig of whiskey for the working man. Man, let me tell you about Ray Traylor. Big Boss Man was an absolute sweetheart. Everybody on the whole crew loved Ray. He was funny. He always had a smile on his face, a quick-witted, sarcastic sense of humor. Glass is always half full. And don't say he was underrated. Everybody knew that Boss Man was a great big guy, great working punch. And, man, yeah, he was believable. That prison guard thing, the whole thing he did, he was very charismatic. He was very charismatic, a very charming guy to talk to. And a guy that when he was talking and telling a story, Ray told great stories. And, God dang it, he lived a bunch of great stories, too. I wish he was still here with us. But, man, Ray was great. And I always tell the same two stories over and over and over again about Ray. I'll give you two of them. One of them was we was at St. Louis in the Kiel Center, and I was going to work a major angle with Big Boss Man. And I can't remember who I was working with, but during the match, he was supposed to come out there and blast me with the steel chair and cause me a loss. Well, all of a sudden, man, we get that part of the match, and I'm waiting for Ray to come out and blast me with the steel chair, and nobody comes. Ray Traylor, the Big Boss Man, ain't nowhere to be seen. So they call an audible. They send Jerry Briscoe out to the ring to hit me in the head with a steel chair. Now, why Jerry would hit me in the head with a steel chair didn't really make sense, but they had to call an audible and send somebody. So they sent Jerry Briscoe, who I love to death. But here's the thing. Jerry's from Oklahoma, and he's a shooter, and he's tough as nails. And he suplexed me over there in Kuwait, chicken wing suplexed me, and I'll never forget it. And we laugh about that all the time. He's one of the sweetest guys you'll ever meet, but he's tough as nails. So anyway, Jerry's not really used to using, steel chairs, and because the older generation didn't really use them too many times, and they weren't swinging them like the young generation started swinging them. And he wanted to take care of me as well. That's how nice of a guy Jerry Briscoe is. So, man, he comes out there and hits me with a pretty weak chair shot. But, again, I love Jerry Briscoe, and he was taking care of me. So I go down, 1, 2, 3. I lose the match, and I come back. And if this was the Unleashed show, I thank Jerry. But I was looking for Ray Traylor. I was looking for the Big Boss Man. We was fixing to work an angle. And I've never, ever got loud or in anybody's face, really in the history of the business. But that night in the Kiel Center, I let Ray have it. I cussed him up and down. I mean, I can't duplicate, even if I was on the Unleashed show, I could not believe that he wasn't out there to hit me with the steel chair. And, all Ray could say was, man, I'm sorry. And what happened was Ray, the Big Boss Man, was in the back shooting a breeze, just laughing and joking, talking with Undertaker. Undertaker, I think, was probably in the main event or whatever. They weren't working together, but he was just back there shooting the breeze with Taker, and he had missed his cue to come out and blast me with the steel chair. So I said, man, we're supposed to work a big-ass angle. And I gave him about every four-letter word I could give, and that's my Ray Traylor story. The other Ray Traylor story I'll give you is this one right here. And I told this a million times, so you people that have heard it before, I'm sorry, but you people that are new to the show, I'll tell it. Back in the day, we used to go to Germany and the UK, and we'd be gone for 2 weeks. We'd be in Germany for 7 days, and we'd be in the UK for 7 days. And the heel bus and the babyface bus. And, man, I'm telling you, we was rocking and rolling. And you'll see some of those pictures of the back of that bus floating in cyberspace every now and then on Twitter. And it's a story. It's a picture of a table in the back of a bus. There's 10 or 12 or 15 guys of us crowded around that table. And I'm telling you, mister, there was some heavy-duty drinking going on. And then we rolled into the hotels. There was more drinking going on, and we was having a blast. And so you get into these trips, and, man, I'm working with Ray a lot. And we was pretty crisp there for the first couple nights. And then he was having a little bit of a ragged night. He was a little off. And Ray had a quick left hand. Man, he could really zap you with that left hand. And it was an awesome working punch. Except this time, he was really laying them in too much, and he was catching me. And I've never really had to send a hard receipt back to a guy in all my years of professional wrestling. Almost never, because I work snug anyway, and guys who were feeding my comebacks can attest to, and I thank them for it. But, man, I like to work snug. Not strong style, but snug, you know. And certainly don't want to hurt anybody. And I expect the same back out of them. You know, I'll give exactly what I take. I'll take exactly what I give, however you say it. Anyway, Earl Hebner, one of my favorite referees of all time and a good friend, was refereeing the match. And Ray hit me with about 6 or 7 live rounds. I mean, the match was going on. We had the people. And I can't remember if we had been in Germany first or this was the UK part of it or whatever. But we had been on the road for about 10 days. And Ray was a little off. He needed to adjust the crosshairs in his scope. And, man, all of a sudden, you know, all of a sudden, Earl Hebner's looking down at me, and he knows I've taken a couple of shots. And he knows there's going to be a receipt coming. He's got this little, grin on his face because he knows something's about to happen. And so I grabbed Ray by the arm, and I sent him into the ropes, and I said, Ray, watch the clothesline. So here comes Big Ray. You know, Ray was about 6'6", 6'7". I was 6'2" in my prime. And, boy, here comes – I sent his ass in. When I send a guy into the ropes, I throw him. And Big Ray, he probably weighed about 320. And big old tall corn-fed dude, I threw his ass in. He comes back off those ropes, and Ray hit the ropes hard. And he's a big dude. And so normally when you hit a guy with the clothesline, you kind of aim about, you know, bottom of the throat because you don't want to hit a man in his throat. And you don't want to hit him too low. It'll take a messed up bump. It's got to be right there in that sweet spot, right below that Adam's apple, almost in that crook where your upper pecs start. Well, Ray, with big ass, was coming across there, and he was looking for that clothesline right in that sweet spot that I just described for you. But that's not what I gave him. And instead of hitting him horizontal with the clothesline, I balled up my fist vertically, and I hit Big Ray right between the eyes with my forearm, which was balled up, about as hard as I could. And Big Ray went down to his knees. I mean, down for a shoot. And I popped him in his right between the damn eyes. That's a true story. And Ray, this is how big and tough Ray is now. He knew he had lit me up several times. And he looked up at me, and it was just like a cartoon that you watch on Saturday mornings when one of the little characters takes a bump and the stars are spinning around on top of his head. That's exactly what Ray looked like. And he looked up at me and had a little smile on his face, and he was pretty bewildered because he just got the crap knocked out of him. And he just looks at me and he goes, okay. When he said okay, he was just acknowledging the fact was, you know what? I've been busting your ass all night long. I had that coming. More power to you. Ray Traylor was loved and respected by every man in that business that I ever met. Nobody have a cross word to talk about Ray. He was the nicest guy in the world and a class act 100%. I was a huge fan of his gimmick. I was a huge fan of his work, and I was a huge fan of him as a man. And I'll never forget when old Brock Lesnar first came into the territory. Boy, old Big Boss Man took a liking to him just because Brock, he's so impressive now, But, I mean, when he first came in as a young buck, I mean, he's always been impressive because he's just, genetically, he's just an athletic freak. And, boy, old Ray just knew that he was something special way back in the day. And he goes, golly, you see that new kid? Boy, he's going to be something else. And you were right, Ray. He turned out to be something else. He turned out to be the conqueror and the guy that ended up ending the Undertaker streak, and the guy who was the UFC World Heavyweight Champion, and the guy right now who's on top in the WWE. So he did turn out to be something special. Those are my memories of one Ray Traylor, a.k.a. the Big Boss Man. Here's another one. Hey, Steve, you've wrestled in ECW, WCW, and WWE, and what I noticed in the ring itself is different sizes in each of the three organizations. WWE's squared circle is big, ECW's was slightly smaller, and WCW's was smaller than that. Or at least that's how they looked to me on TV anyway. I'm possibly wrong. If the ring sizes were indeed different, how did that factor your in-ring performance going from one company to another when you had varied amounts of room to maneuver? So, let me talk about that. He asked another question about the WWE Championship belt. I don't want to get into that. But let's go to the ring sizes. I think the smallest ring I've ever worked in was a 16-footer. And those are some of those tent shows we used to work way back in the day. And I remember very vividly, that was when I was working with Aldo Montoya, just incredible. Had great matches with him. And we were working those little 16-footers. And I tell you what, when you work in those 16-footers, it's really hard to blow up. And that makes it a lot of fun because you're covering less space. Now, obviously, you can move with a lot of speed because as soon as you hit those ropes and you go to tackle a guy, you're there, he's there, and the impact happens. And so the high spots, you got to slow down a little bit because the ropes are so close. And if you're coming from a 20-footer, which is what we normally worked at in WWE on the big shows, you've got to slow things down a little bit because it happens fast just because you're in a smaller ring. The give and the forgiveness of those mats and those 16-footers was that was almost trampoline-like. Everybody says, oh, those rings are soft. No, they're not. Those rings are hard. It's so easy to get hurt. But those 16-footers were sweet. That was kind of like landing on a little bit of a trampoline type effect. Loved taking bumps in the 16-footer, and it sounded just like it was killing you. But the speed really happens. And then 18-footer, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that's what WCW was using at the time because it wasn't what WWF was using. And so, that 18-footer is pretty nice. And here's the thing. You work in a 16-footer, you get in a tag match, and if you're not really watching, how you're positioning your opponent, and that guy on the corner, he's got to short arm himself because if he's really hanging onto the corner and stretched out, he can damn near reach all the way across the ring and make that tag. So some of those 16-footers with respects to tag team action, really, you got to be really careful and keep that guy away from the ring. The same thing can happen in an 18-footer. I used to love the way that the Andersons, Arn and Ole, would cut off the ring, when they were getting the heat on somebody, and always prevent that from happening. And there's nothing worse than seeing a guy, especially when back in the old WWF days when they had the tag ropes, and I don't know if they still have them, and you'll see a guy holding the slack end of the far end of that rope, but alligator arming it because the guys are too close. And even a 20-footer, without paying attention to where you are, it'll totally kill and take everything away from that match. When you see a guy over there on the corner jumping up and down, really wanting to tag, but alligator arming it because his buddy, his tag team partner, is too close because the heels have let him get too close. And sometimes when you're watching a match, watch that alligator arm effect. It'll totally take you out of that match. When I first came to WWF, I was in for the surprise of a lifetime because those rings down in WCW, those are pretty good bump rings too. And I was used to those 18-footers, and they were pretty sweet. They wasn't like that 16-footer. You still want to take a flat back bump. You still want to slap the mat. You want to land square. As we know, that doesn't always happen. But those 18-footers are pretty sweet to bump in. And I tell you what had happened was, and this is the word on the street, back in the day, WWF kind of had those real springy 20-footers, but Vince didn't like the way that looked on TV because it was just going up and down. And this was also the era of the Andre the Giants when Hogan was well over 300, one-man gang. all of those big guys. I mean, hell, half the territory was 300 pounds or better, and so they stiffened up those rings to take away that effect on TV. And all of a sudden, that's when I rolled in from ECW, and I started, taking a couple of bumps in those rings, and I was like, whoa, hold on for a second here, mister. Something's real different. These rings are hard. I'm talking about real hard. So, in WWF, for a long time, those rings were snug as hell, and you've got to adjust your work style accordingly. And after many years, you would think that with all the technology that man has, one would be able to construct a ring that was forgiving on the body and not hurt so much when you took a bump. But it was impossible to do that. These rings hurt. Finally, they came up with a different ring, and basically it's a steel structure. And on the bottom, is angle iron. Then you've got your 2x12s going across it. You have a small roll, maybe about a quarter, eighth inch of felt. And then you have that mat. And today's rings got a little bit more give to them for bumping than those old WWF rings that I started in on late 95, 96. Those damn things were hard. And today's rings are more forgiving, but make no mistake about it. When you bump and work in a 20x20 squared circle for a living, and you don't take a flat back bump, and the laws of gravity and physics apply, and discombobulation happens because of travel and all the room for error, things happen in the ring. It's a rough way to make a living, and that's the bottom line on rings and how they are. But I think the guys, don't get me wrong, like I'm saying, there is no easy ring to bump in. And it was funny, because when I hosted Tough Enough back in 2011, whenever it was, eons ago, it was funny because all of a sudden you got Miss USA in there, Rima, and she was actually a really wonderful person. I had a good time talking with her. I don't know what she's doing now. But when you get some people in there who aren't used to bumping, it's like you either dig it or you acclimate to it or you're completely allergic to it. And I think she was allergic to it because that ring, it's a monster if you don't know what you're doing. And if you take a bad fall on it, and it really scares you, so then you're even more precautious and more careful, and you can't do that. When you take a bump, you have to attack that mat and go flat and slap it. You can't try to protect yourself from it. You've got to go for it with gusto to protect yourself and stay tight. Anyway, that's just an old damn wrestling story. Let me get on. Hey, you know what? I asked you people to send me some emails about buttermilk. I had so many buttermilk emails that I could have made this the Buttermilk podcast. Man, people drink that stuff. They say it's better with a little bit of salt and pepper in it. I got a lot of people say they crumble up cornbread and eat the cornbread out of it. People make pancakes with it. And I said that about on the podcast with Ted, buttermilk pancakes, but you never really use buttermilk in the recipe as it's already built in. But, man, a lot of people use it as a laxative. Some people use it for indigestion, all kinds of different stuff. But I had this guy right here, he throws jalapenos at his every now and then, and that's from Mark Allen Hall over in Columbus, Ohio. He's been drinking buttermilk since he was a kid. Every visit he would go to Grandma's, and she would pour us a glass. He goes, by itself, it ain't great, but add some salt and pepper and stir it up, boom. I throw some jalapenos in there every now and then. So, Mark, over in Columbus, Ohio, I'm probably not going to throw any jalapenos or get any buttermilk myself, but I appreciate you sending that email. But everybody wants to know about the buttermilk, and it's a thing that probably kind of disappearing. I don't think as many people drink buttermilk as they did back in the day. But anyway, here's another dude. He goes, hey, man, I was wondering if you could give a shout-out to my boy Kenneth K. Bradley, who recently paid homage to your entrance at a wrestling-themed fighting game tournament, CEO 2015, complete with beer and stunner, and you can see the video here. This is from YJ. Yeah, man, hey, K-Brad. I saw you, let me get up from this table. I saw you get in that ring, and receive those two beers and crash them together. And then that dude, obviously, he was smarting up to the gig and fed in for the stunner. I tell you what, that blew up my Twitter timeline for quite some time, seeing your ass crash your beers together and give that dude a stunner. So I give you a shout-out. You blew my Twitter account up, Steve Austin, BSR, and appreciate you still remembering what I was doing way back in the day when you was still a youngster. Nice job at the office, and swig a beer for the gaming man. All right, appreciate that, man. Let's move on with another question here. I just had a guy come in here. I'm over here at the Broken Skull Challenge compound out here recording this podcast. And when I rolled up, I tried to get on the internet to be able to send my show over to Stacy over at Beverly Hills 90210, and I found out I didn't have any signal. And I said, man, you have got to be kidding me. Can one more thing go wrong as far as technology issues in my podcast? Because that's the ongoing theme. And so the guy comes over here, and he can't find the signal on my computer like I couldn't find it. And so they come over here and start looking around, and obviously some kind of rodent, whether it was a rat like we got down there in South Texas, a raccoon, a chipmunk, something, whatever it was, chewed through the fiber optic cable here to the trailer. Didn't chew it all the way through, just chewed it about 1/3 of the way through, and that was enough to knock out my Wi-Fi. So what I'm doing is, he just brought me one of them hotspots, one of them little gimmick things that's slow as hell. There's no way I can send my show on this, so I'll take my computer setup over to the production part of the show. I live over here where I'm a hermit and hang out by myself. I got to get my swell on, so I'll take the computer over there, download my files, and get them to Stacy. But anyway, that's what I got going on over here. The dude just knocked on the door and tried to hook a brother up. So I got a little bit of internet right here, but it ain't fast enough to send this show. Hey, man, old Derek from Kentucky sends in a question. He goes, hey, Steve, how did you train Hershey to be so well-behaved that you can take her everywhere with you and she don't tear things up? I'm telling you what. Ever since I bought Hershey off my buddy Trey down there in Cotulla, Texas, that dog has been nothing but one of the smartest dogs I've ever been around. And she's just so mellow and sweet and understanding. And she doesn't get real excited in the wrong way about anything very fast. And she's just so cool that if I'm walking somewhere, and, like out in the country, and there's or if we're out here when I bring her out here to Broken Skull Challenge, well, I don't keep her on a leash. She just does what she wants. But, man, I'll sit there and start talking to somebody, and she'll just flat out lay down on the ground. If I move over 10 feet, she'll watch me. If I move over anything further than about 10 feet, she'll come lay back down right by me, and she won't move. And if there's another dog hanging around, she won't bother the other dog. So that dog has been my damn best friend for 8 years now. One of my best friends. I got to throw my wife in there too. But, man, I love that dog. But she's always been like that. And what we're doing right now, she's 10. And, boy, I hope that dog lasts another 30 years because I love her to death. But we have another Labrador Retriever, Silver Lab, and her name is Moolah. And Moolah is really, really good. She's a little skittish around strangers. She's good with women. She doesn't trust men too much. But when my wife takes her to restaurants and stuff, and we got leash loss, she's outstanding. She'll just lay there wherever, Kristen puts her, and she'll just hang out and be very mellow. So Moolah's kind of on the right track. And that's one of the reasons why, Hershey's not out here on the compound with me, because Hershey and Moolah are such good friends that when Hershey was out here, she missed Moolah. And when Hershey went at home, Moolah missed Hershey and totally discombobulated her schedule. So that's why I leave her at home right now. But she's the best dog in the world. Hey, man, Derek also goes on to ask me, he said, hey, what's the worst drunk purchase you ever made on eBay? And put in parentheses, I've done it too. I bought 2 Ford Broncos on eBay, and I bought an 87 El Camino Conquista model. 87 was the last year of the El Camino, black and silver, out of Florida, cream puff. I think I paid too much for the green and silver Bronco. Probably could have got that thing for a little bit cheaper than I did, but the wine in me said you must bid more because someone is beating you. But that's not the worst purchase I made. I collect porcelain enamel signs, and one time I got all fired up and spent way too much money on a sign. And then my wife found out about it, and she said, "You paid that much for that?" And I said, "Yeah." She said, "Why?" And I didn't have a really good answer for her other than the fact that I'd had a couple glasses of wine in me. So my wife, being the return person that she is absolutely incredible. My wife saves the receipts for everything in case something, and man, if something's a real deal and she loves it, she'll never take it back. And but you know, she don't use it. If something doesn't work, like she buys something for me and I don't like it, like clothes and stuff like that, because I'm real bad about clothes, just take it back. Me, you know, guys are guys. Just like I was talking to Ted Fowler 361 down there at the Broken Skull this past Thursday. Ted don't return nothing. He'll eat it just like I will, because that's what guys do. Man, I ain't got time to go down to Walmart or Home Depot and sit in a return line. So now my wife, she got on eBay, read the return policy, and the dude didn't want to do the return or give the money back. But she said, "This is your policy, this is what's on eBay, and this is what you must adhere to." Long story short, sent the sign back, got the money back, thanks to my wife, the wife of a global icon and national treasure. That's the worst thing I ever bought on eBay. I won't tell you what the sign was, and I won't tell you how much I spent for it, because it was dumb. Hey, dude says, is Alligator down at the ranch? Yes, he is. The Broken Skull Ranch, about a third of it is completely flooded. There's water everywhere in the central part of that ranch. Alligator hangs out at Tombstone Lake. That lake is way filled up. So Alligator's he's alive and well, and he's thriving. Ted ain't been able to feed him no rabbits or anything lately because the water's too deep, but Alligator's still down at the ranch. And the last question, Derek says to me, he says, "Hey, Steve, what kind of gun do you suggest for home protection? Also, do you have a concealed carry permit?" No, I don't have a concealed carry permit. Man, I would don't know what to suggest for home protection, because there's so many different theories on a wheeled gun versus an automatic, and a wheeled gun with a hammer or a hammerless, and all that stuff. So there's way more qualified people than me to suggest a particular gun for home protection, because I don't know how proficient you are with a weapon. Me personally, I keep a Glock 45. And just because I got single actions, I got Kimbers, I got enough pistols, whatever, I just don't want to have to worry about a safety if it's cocked and locked and all that other stuff. With that Glock, I got one in the pipe, clip's full. That's my rig. I'm not suggesting it. I'm not endorsing anything. I'm just saying that's my rig, and so it's easy and it works for me. And you can leave that gun in a mud puddle for a year and pick it up, and it's going to work. It's hard to mess that thing up. All right, everybody, give me the go-home cue. It's time to wrap up this podcast and ride off into the sunset. I don't have a word of the day. I'm here to just put the rumors to rest about, well, here's the headline of one of the articles I'm fixing to read you, and these articles were all over the internet and cyberspace today. This is from WrestlingInc.com. It says Steve Austin may have caused Roddy Piper's podcast to be canceled. Here's the article. Roddy Piper's podcast returned today without the aid of host PodcastOne. Will Sasso was a guest, and as it turns out, created quite a bit of controversy regarding the release. Sasso impersonated Steve Austin on the podcast, something that Austin apparently took exception to. Piper apologized to Sasso on air, as Austin was apparently upset about the impersonation. Sasso and Austin are friends, and it got Sasso in trouble, according to Piper. After the show aired about 6 hours, it was taken down from where I was formerly with the threat of firing me. There's the problem. Don't threaten me. This podcast had so much love in it. It's a strong reaction I got to want to fire me, Piper said. He said on Periscope recently that he's been fired before, but would want to at least do something that warranted the firing. Piper's co-host stated on the podcast that he didn't think anything went too far, and more people simply needed to take it as a joke. Stone Cold strikes me as the type of person who doesn't have a sense of humor, Piper's co-host said. Piper added, "It's satire. I don't take shots. This was in love." All right, so that's the article. And my response is the timeline is a little inaccurate. I don't know what they aired today on SoundCloud, if it was the same podcast or whatever. But that podcast was recorded 3, 4, 5 months ago. And it was what it was. And now it's water under the bridge. And so I didn't like the podcast. It had some business of a personal nature that I didn't care to have floating around out there being downloaded in cyberspace. So I had to remove from rotation when I did. And I went down my road, and Roddy went down the road he went down, and we both kept podcasting. And all of a sudden now, I get blamed for his departure from PodcastOne. Well, it couldn't be further from the truth. Hey, man, I'm 50. I ain't got time for no soap opera. I don't want no BS in my life. I've created enough and been in enough way back in the day to do it anymore. So it is what it is. Here's what happened. I put a call in to find out from the president himself of PodcastOne what happened. He was over in France. I had to send him an email, and he ended up calling me back. And I said, I'm getting blamed for the fact that Piper's left PodcastOne. What's the deal? And here's what happened. Roddy requested a meeting with the president of PodcastOne, went in there and expressed the fact that he was no longer interested in doing a podcast with the PodcastOne network, and he wanted to focus on other things in his life. There were some other details in there, which I will not divulge. This is a conversation that I'm paraphrasing, and I don't want to go too far into details. Anyway, president of PodcastOne says, Roddy, if you don't want to do a podcast for us, you don't have to. And so Roddy said, thank you for the opportunity. He shook his hand, and he walked out the door. So for the hot potato or the blame to be placed in my lap that I ran him off or had him intimidated or had anything to do with him leaving is totally false. Roddy asked for the meeting. He got the meeting, expressed his desire to leave the company, and it is what it is. To my knowledge, on paper, he's still under contract with PodcastOne. It was reported to me that if he wanted to go back and continue his podcast, he could. Whether he does or not is up to him. I guess he's already in business with someone else, with the SoundCloud thing, whatever it is. That's his business. I had nothing to do with it. I'm going to wrap this thing up. To Roddy, you're one of the all-time greats in the business of professional wrestling. I cheered for you as a babyface. I booed you as a heel and respected everything that you did, and your Hall of Fame career speaks for what it is. And to that, no hard feelings. I don't want to back and forth on this. Closed book. That's my side of the story. I will not respond to anything else. And what I've spoken is the bottom line, and what I've spoken is the truth. I had nothing to do with Roddy Piper leaving PodcastOne. End of story. My name is Steve Austin. I appreciate you supporting this podcast. I'll catch your ass down the road.
This has been a PodcastOne production. Download new episodes of The Steve Austin Show every Tuesday at PodcastOne.com. That's PodcastOne.com.
Do you own a home or condo? Or perhaps you rent a house or apartment? Sure you do. And Geico knows it can be hard work. Because whether you own or rent, you still have to fill it full of your stuff. Your furniture, the flat screen, and all the boxes of stuff that have been sitting there ever since you moved in, but haven't unpacked. It's hard to find the time, right? But you know what's easy? Bundling policies with Geico. Geico makes it easy to bundle your homeowner's or renter's insurance along with your auto policy. That way, you'll rest easy knowing that your home and all your stuff is protected. Like the furniture and that flat screen. Plus, getting a quote on homeowners and renters insurance is super easy through Geico. It's a good thing, too, because you already have so much to do around your home. You know, like going through all those boxes of stuff. Visit geico.com, get a quote, and see how much you could save. It's Geico easy. Visit geico.com today. That's geico.com.
All month long, the biggest movies are streaming free on Pluto TV's Popcorn Summer Movies. Watch star-studded blockbusters like Titanic and Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen. Or fall in love with charming rom-coms like Hitch and How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. The best part? Pluto TV is 100% free. No credit cards, not even a sign-up. Plus, Pluto TV has hundreds of channels with thousands more movies, TV shows, and more. Download the Pluto TV app on all your favorite devices and start streaming now. Pluto TV. Drop in, watch free.
I don't remember anything about that game. First of all, I was so pissed, but I was so drunk, too.
What's up, heroes? I'm Brendan Fitzgibbons.
And I'm Sophie Santos.
And we're the co-hosts of the new comedy sports podcast, Hammered Heroes.
On Hammered Heroes, we celebrate the best performances by professional athletes while they were hammered, on drugs, or horribly hungover.
Myself, Santana, and Sean, prior to the game, we would take a little shot.
Each week, we'll discuss a game or incident that focuses on an athlete's mind-blowing performance despite being extremely hammered.
Doc Evans working on a no-hitter.
It was easier to pitch with the LSD. That's the way I was dealing with the fear of failure.
Think of it as Drunk History meets 30 for 30 meets Jackass.
We're going to have the best comedians, sports personalities, and even the Hammered Heroes themselves.
And then, we're even going to try and recreate some of these legendary performances.
Will we always be drunk? No.
Yes. It's Hammered Heroes. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
So the record was 73.
73 beers in a cross-country flight.
Yeah.